The hour is late. The oil lamps of the scriptorium and the royal archives have been dimmed, their light now a honeyed low haze struggling against the deep indigo of the late 14th century mountain night. We begin our quiet exploration, not with the sudden shock of battle, but with the measured, almost inaudible drip of water within the heart of the capital city. Ethelgerd. Ethelgerd. A name now existing only in the most obscure of cartographies, was situated in a deep valley, cradled by peaks where the snow line began. Its existence was a marvel of late medieval engineering, though never one flaunted with boastful monuments. Instead, its magnificence lay in its perfect, quiet functionality. Our journey starts deep below the cobbled streets, where the very lifeblood of the city circulated, the subterranean aqueducts. These were not Roman behemoths, but a complex multi-tiered system, often lined with smoothed river stones and a specialized water-resistant cement derived from local volcanic ash. The soft, continuous rush of the water through these tunnels provided a constant, low-frequency hum that was the true, silent pulse of Ethelgerd. This network was the project of King Valerius II. The Silent King. His epithet was earned not through a vow of silence, but through an absolute economy of speech. Valerius governed by the precise application of data. His court was not a stage for vibrant oratory or courtly games. It was a workshop of logistics. Above the aqueducts, but intrinsically linked to them, stood the royal clockwork, the true secular shrine of the kingdom. Housed in the central tower, this mechanism was a marvel of gearing, counterweights, and carefully sanded bronze. It was not merely a timepiece. It was a functional model of the cosmos and the kingdom's resource management. The flow rate of the aqueducts was mechanically coupled to the clock's movements. The gentle slowing of the water in a dry period reflected by a minutely adjustable indicator on the mechanism's face. Imagine the sound, not the clang of a loud bell, but the soft, almost hypnotic tick and whir of carefully balanced weights, moving against the resistance of a slow-release oil. This mechanical serenity was the atmosphere of Ethelgerd. The clocks determined the opening of the market gates, the release of irrigation channels, and even the regulated duration of the royal auditor's appointments. Life was predictable, efficient, and deeply, deeply quiet. It was the perfect environment for a mind seeking true rest, allowing the gentle grinding of gears to replace the static of the day. Our focus now shifts to the archives, where the king's rule was recorded. The key document is the Chronicles of the Court, a series of massive, leather-bound tomes compiled by the Office of the Royal Scribe. The king insisted on the use of obsidian-tipped styluses for recording, a tool that provided a crisp, unchangeable, almost reverent scratch on the specially treated parchment. It is here, in the 4th volume of the Chronicle, that our mystery lies. The entries span from the harvest of 1378 to the winter solstice of 1380. The handwriting is consistent of formal, slightly cramped Northern Gothic script, and the details are relentlessly factual. On the 12th day of the 7th month, 83 sacks of milled rye delivered to the eastern granary. On the 13th, the chief surveyor petitioned for 3 lengths of fine hemp rope. Every day is accounted for, every expenditure noted, every royal signature perfectly formed, until one particular section. Between the final entry of the 1st day of the 10th month and the first entry of the 2nd day of the 11th month, there is a span of 30 consecutive pages, perfectly blank. The pages are not ripped out. They are simply blank, save for the faint, purposeful impression of the scribe's stylus along the edges, indicating the pages were prepared for use but left unmarked. 30 days. A lunar cycle entirely missing from the history of the most meticulous kingdom in Europe. It is the historical equivalent of a stopped clock, a silent alarm in the midst of perfect order. This gap, this void in the data, is the quiet puzzle we shall spend our time examining. We shall use the tranquility of this setting to meticulously examine the threads of evidence that exist around the silence. The blank space in the chronicles of the court is more than an absence of ink. It is a historical anomaly. To the boring history for sleep scholar, such a gap is a gentle invitation, a problem solved not through dramatic revelation, but through the patient accumulation of peripheral facts. We now turn our attention away from the grand mechanism of the clockwork and towards the minute, soothing details that surround the void, the subtle ripples in the otherwise perfect stillness of the archive. The tributary's unbroken flow, botanical imports the entries that immediately precede the 30-day silence contain what seems, on the surface, to be nothing more than standard logistical records. Specifically, the entry for the final recorded day, the first day of the 10th month, notes the receipt of a shipment of botanical imports from a distant tributary known as the Sarmatian Fork. Details are paramount here. The king's court required a consistent supply of a specific non-native moss, Bryophyta ethelgardia, which possessed a unique property. When dried and mixed with resin, it created an extremely durable, lightweight packaging for delicate governmental documents. The scribe's record lists the following precise figures: delivery, moss, Sarmatian fork variety; quantity, 18 standard baskets; condition, optimal, moisture content, 12.5%. Inspector, Master Alchemist Sealess. The significance of this is the consistency. For years, the shipments of this moss had arrived every 29 to 32 days, reflecting the time needed for the gatherers to travel the distance. If the moss arrived on the first of the 10th month, the next expected delivery would fall precisely within the missing 30-day period. Yet, the next recorded delivery on the second day of the 11th month, the day the records resume, details a double shipment. Delivery, moss, Sarmatian fork variety; quantity, 36 standard baskets; condition, optimal, moisture content, 12.0%. Inspector, Master Alchemist Sealess. This single data point, a double delivery immediately after the gap, suggests not a disruption of the supply chain, but a postponement of the receipt. The moss gatherers completed their trip, waited for the court to resume its function, and delivered both the missed shipment and the new one simultaneously. The kingdom's external functions continued, oblivious to the internal stasis. This quiet, logistical consistency is reassuring, providing a stable foundation upon which to rest our analysis. The weight of the crown, royal treasury seals further evidence of ongoing, yet unrecorded, royal activity is found in the treasury ledgers, which, unlike the chronicles, were kept by a separate, almost monastic department. The king's most important official decrees required a seal made of a special lead sealing wax, colored with cinnabar and stamped with the royal sigil. The ledgers tracked the consumption of this wax by weight. The ledger for the 10th month shows a slow but steady decline in the total stock of the sealing wax, matching the average daily consumption rate of 8.4 text grams per day. This means that throughout the missing 30 days in the chronicles, the royal sigil was being affixed to documents at a normal, consistent rate. The conclusion is inescapable. King Valerius II was conducting official, sealed business during the 30-day void. The decrees simply were not recorded in the central, public-facing chronicle. The work continued, but the record was silenced. This detail, the gentle subtraction of 8.4 text grams per day, is the soft factual drumbeat that pushes our investigation forward. The role of the cartographer. Elara finally, we introduce Elara, the royal cartographer. Historically, the cartographer's role was often overlooked, a technician of lines and parchment. But in Valerius's court, detail was power. Elara was tasked with maintaining the kingdom's survey maps, and her office, positioned on the highest floor of the tower, gave her an unparalleled view of both the clockwork and the city's meticulously planned chaos. Ilara's journal, unlike the formal chronicles, is kept in a small bound volume. And she used simple charcoal, a tool considered too informal for royal records. Her entries are not narrative, but observations on the weather, the alignment of the stars, and the precise shifting of shadows cast by the tower onto the surrounding buildings. Data points crucial for map calibration. Her final entry before the gap confirms the setting. 10th month, day 1. North shadow alignment correct. Wind speed, 1.5 units. The usual quiet passage. This meticulous observation of the physical world, recorded by an outside observer, becomes our most reliable anchor. Ilara's data, focusing on geometry and meteorology, stands apart from the political silos, offering an independent timeline for the events that transpired. Her quiet, focused duty is the steady light guiding us through this informational darkness. We continue our quiet descent into the silent history of Ethelgerd. Our focus now sharpens on Ilara, the royal cartographer, whose precise, mundane observations stand as the only surviving independent timeline through the 30-day void. Her charcoal-drawn entries, once merely map calibrations, now serve as geological strata, allowing us to date and decipher the unrecorded events of King Valerius II's reign. The angular anomaly Ilara's meticulous records of the tower's shadow, the gnomons trace reveal the first physical anomaly. The shadow's daily trajectory was a critical tool for her work, allowing her to account for the slight seasonal shift in the solar arc. Immediately following the missing 30 days, on the 2nd day of the 11th month, her recorded calibration for the shadow's angle at midday is subtly, yet definitively, incorrect. The calculation of the angle, based on the known latitude of Ethelgerd and Ilara's previous data recorded on the first day of the 10th month, should have yielded a midday angle of $32 vi circ dollar. Instead, her journal records her actual observation as $32 y circ dollar. This small $0 a circ dollar variance is too large for observational error. Ilara was a master of her craft. What could cause a perfectly aligned, stationary stone tower's shadow to shift? Only a change in the physical environment. A structure must have been temporarily erected or significantly altered near the tower's base, subtly occluding or redirecting the sunlight just enough to produce the angular anomaly. This points not to a temporary blockade in the streets, but to a concentrated, large-scale construction or concealment project taking place near the center of the royal compound, precisely where the silent king conducted his most critical work. The wind and the dust further corroboration. Commies from Ilara's meteorological notes. Her records typically track wind speed and cloud cover. However, in the entries recorded immediately after the void, specifically from the 2nd through the 6th day of the 11th month, she repeatedly notes an unusual localized phenomena, a fine ochre particulate in the air, a dust that settled onto her parchment. 11th month, day 3, particulate count high. Visibility reduced by 2 units. Not common silt, too fine, too yellow. Requires frequent cleaning of the lenses. Ochre is a natural earth pigment, commonly used for mortar coloration or, more significantly, as a stabilizing ingredient in the specialized clay coatings used to line deep trenches and shafts to prevent collapse during excavation. Combined with the shift in the shadow's angle, this strongly suggests that during the 30-day void, intense, geographically concentrated digging and construction occurred within the close confines of the royal complex. The king was building, or perhaps unearthing, something massive and delicate. The informative detail, sealing wax and decrees let U.S. return to the 8.4 text grams dollar of lead sealing wax consumed daily. If King Valerius was busy supervising a secret excavation, What were the decrees he was signing? The answer lies in the documents that were sealed with this specific cinnabar wax, which were finally recorded in the chronicles after the void lifted. Among the documents immediately entered into the chronicle on the 2nd day of the 11th month were 30 individual retroactive deeds of temporary royal eminent domain. Each deed, dated sequentially for every day of the missing month, transferred control of a specific small parcel of land near the Clockwork Tower and the treasury to the king's direct, unrecorded command. This is the informative detail that closes the logistical loop. The 8.4 text grams dollar of daily sealing wax was used to affix the royal sigil to these 30 deeds. The king did not stop governing. He simply shifted his administration into a mode of extreme, localized secrecy. He was legally securing the exact area where Alara's observations suggested construction was occurring. The mundane detail of the wax consumption now maps perfectly onto the highly unusual legal activity. The nature of the secret, based on this convergence of detailed factual evidence, angular anomaly, suggests the erection of a temporary sunlight-blocking structure. Ochre particulate suggests deep excavation and use of trench-stabilizing clay mortar. Deeds of domain confirms the king legally controlled the specific ground being worked. We can confidently postulate that King Valerius II, the Silent King, used a 30-day period to supervise the rapid and secretive excavation of a deep, shielded repository directly beneath the royal compound. Perhaps an underground extension of the clockwork system, or a secure vault intended to receive a delicate hidden artifact. The 30 blank pages in the official history were not an oversight, but a deliberate administrative shielding of a major, singular project, a profound act of historical censorship executed through organizational silence.